ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa will this morning address the ANC NEC's Lekgotla in Kempton Park on the East Rand of Johannesburg. The two-day meeting is set to focus on the economy, electricity and rising unemployment. It paves the way for a cabinet meeting this week where a cabinet reshuffle is set to top the agenda, and that's all ahead of the State of the Nation address on the 9th of February. Well, Newzroom Afrika's Govan Whittles is following the story. He joins us live from Kempton Park Conference Centre in Kempton Park. Govan, good morning. Great to see you. Suffice to say, there is a lot on the agenda this morning.
There is, and there certainly is an air of expectation around this meeting that its outcomes would lead to that cabinet reshuffle, see the entrance of Paul Mashatile into government as the deputy president, the replacement of the transport minister who's a permanent member of the ANC's office bearers now, and the filling of the Department of Public Service and Administration position. But then there is also a lot expected around the portfolio of energy. The ANC conference resolving that Eskom should be placed under the stewardship of Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, Mantashe, and raising questions about what that means for the Department of Public Enterprises. That conference also decided that Transnet should go back to transport and Denel should go back to defense. That doesn't mean all of the state-owned entities would essentially go back to their line department. So the Department of Public Enterprise is still having a lot of work to do here. Those are the politics behind what would happen in this meeting. But there is also a great air of expectation around what the ANC will do about the state of the country. We've seen a repo rate increase from the Reserve Bank. The cost of living is going up for all South Africans, and the ANC is expected to respond to this. Load shedding is crippling the economy, and we know that the National Energy Crisis Committee is taking the lead on how they'll respond. From this meeting, we're expecting outcomes which include the emergency procurement of power and also the importing of power from neighboring countries where the transmission lines are already in place. That's regard to energy. And with regards to the economy, we saw a warning from Janet Yellen from the United States Federal Bank, who said that her main message in coming to South Africa, meeting with our finance minister, is to warn South Africa that there are consequences for violating the sanctions that have been placed on Russia. The Russian ammunition ship docking in South Africa, much to the irritation of the United States, and the joint naval exercises with China and Russia that are scheduled for the 17th of February, happening at a time which the European Union Commission says is something that they would have not preferred. It coincides with the start of Russia's invasion into Ukraine. That's the scene, but of course there are already a lot of other political issues and internal dynamics within the ANC, of which we expect finality. The appointment of spokespersons, the appointment of subcommittee chairpersons, and they're really the people that take the lead in communicating and formulating the party's policy.
Yeah, you've already alluded to it, Govan, the imminent cabinet reshuffle, the ushering in of Paul Mashatile as deputy president. What then of David Mabuza?
David Mabuza has played an interesting role in the days after he essentially lost the deputy presidency of the ANC at Nasrec in 2022. He wasn't present at the January 8th celebrations of the party. His successor, Paul Mashatile, said that he had been attending to a family emergency in Eswatini. Since then, he hasn't made public appearances as the deputy president. He's no longer a member of this NEC. He's not in this meeting. There are rumors swirling that he's offered his resignation to the president to make way for Paul Mashatile. This becomes quite interesting because the two members of the cabinet that are not members of parliament right now are Ibrahim Patel and Patricia de Lille, occupying the Public Works Ministry and the Department of Trade and Industry Ministry. Those are the two positions that the president is allowed to fill in the cabinet without having those people be members of parliament. So Paul Mashatile is to come in as the deputy president. He would need to be sworn in as parliament. Parliament only rises on the 9th of February at that State of the Nation address. It's unclear whether it would rise earlier to facilitate the swearing in of Paul Mashatile. If it doesn't, the President would have to let go of one of the two ministers who are not members of Parliament to make way for the Deputy Presidency, increasing the complexity in the considerations towards a cabinet reshuffle. Some people, analysts specifically, have been saying that that may be the reason why we've seen such a delay. Others are saying that the President is, quote-unquote, applying his mind to this, and that's the phrase that he used at that ANC Golf Day. But the expectation certainly is building, and the ANC in Gauteng believes that that reshuffle is imminent.
Govan, I want to just touch on the issues around the energy crisis and what might be discussed there. Of course, that issue around moving SOEs in line with their ministries, which you opened your crossing to us with this morning. That's something that is more of a long-term plan, isn't it? It's unlikely that that kind of plan would be implemented in the build-up to 2024 and the national elections.
That is the expectation. The President saying, after being questioned on how long it would take for him to move the Energy Ministry or ESCOM to the Energy Ministry, saying that it is a process that needs to unfold. The technicalities of it is that the President holds the prerogative, and he can, by a directive, allocate custodianship of ESCOM to the Energy Department. That is something that comes from his office. It's a letter which is sent to both the Energy Minister and the ESCOM management. He has the power to do so. If he does so urgently before the 2024 election, it would only signal the influence of Gwede Mantashe and the pressure that the President has come under from within the ANC. But the interesting part of your question revolves around whether or not he's likely to make significant changes ahead of the 2024 elections. Taking a look at his cabinet, there are several high-profile ministers who are no longer part of the ANC's NEC. The party's plan for 2023 towards the national election next year is being formulated by an NEC which now does not include most of those ministers. Of course, they're summoned here as deployees of the party, but some of the names include, of course, Pravin Gordhan, Dr. Naledi Pandor, Tulas Ngesi, Dr. Bladen Zemande, among a few. These are ministers who have been roped into international engagements. Dr. Bladen Zemande and Dr. Naledi Pandor being at the forefront of that engagement with the European Union Commission earlier this week. Ibrahim Patel, Minister of Trade and Industry, also not part of the NEC, also leading that engagement with the European Union Commission. And that only raises the question about whether this new, refreshed or younger NEC would push for representation within the cabinet to implement their agenda and offer a manifesto to voters with a leadership in cabinet that the voters would be able to hold accountable for the implementation of that manifesto. That consideration is likely to play out over the next few weeks, months, definitely after SONA. But what is interesting is that the Finance Minister, Ido Konongwana, has promised that ESCOM will have a new CEO before the budget is delivered in February. That has set a deadline and an expectation. The question is, who will appoint that CEO? Will it be Pravin Gordhan or Gwede Mantashe? And if that CEO is appointed by Pravin Gordhan, how will he work with Minister Gwede Mantashe after ESCOM is allocated to the Energy Department? Those are the dynamics around the energy question, and the ministers in cabinet. The ball is really in the President's court here, and he'll have to provide the clarity once he appears on television to make that expected announcement about a reshuffle. Yeah.
In the meantime, the President set to open that meeting that is taking place, that two-day Lekgotla that is taking place there in Johannesburg, and as soon as that opening address does begin, you can catch it live on 405. Govan Whittles, thanks very much indeed for that preview.